Well, hello, and thanks for watching another episode of News of the Pews, where you can count on unapologetic 2A advocacy. Gun rights are human rights. Somehow, this episode wound up being, oops, all ATF. They've been up to quite a lot recently, and not all of it is as evil as you would expect. ATF Director Robert Cicada announced ATF was able to process every single Form 1 and Form 4 submitted by Virginians ahead of the July 1st deadline for their state's recent ban. Of course, we'd all rather hear the NFA was repealed or the Virginian politicrators were tarred and feathered, but dear brothers and sisters, never let perfect be the enemy of the good. So many times when I report some small positive change, I get waves of childish comments about how it's not far enough. Those people aren't wrong, of course. All gun control is unconstitutional and a fundamental violation of basic human rights. But every small step in the direction of increased individual liberty is a good thing, and we can acknowledge that without legitimizing the remaining infringements. But hey, it would be impossible for me to produce quality 2A propaganda without you. That's right, I don't have any sponsors, so I literally could not make this content without your generous support. And so far, it's going pretty well. I've been doing this on my own now for half the year, and I feel like I'm on a good trajectory. I'm seeing steady growth in this channel, and while it's not enough yet to pay the bills, I think I do have enough left in savings to get me to the point where this thing will be sustainable on its own in the future. This whole thing is risky and exciting, and I'm incredibly grateful to you folks for making it possible. Without your support, I would have given up months ago. So with that in mind, if you happen to be in a comfortable place in life, please consider supporting this channel by purchasing one of these sick t-shirts for just $15. Or, if you'd prefer to give more directly, I have placed links down there in the doobly-doo, and right here, of course, for Patreon and PayPal. Patreon supporters get early access to scripts and videos, as well as private Discord access, but as always, if you are not in a comfortable place in life, please don't feel pressured. You don't owe anyone else a thing. Just enjoy this 2A propaganda at the price of free 99 and continue to pray for us. But just because the ATF did one good thing, don't go letting F-Troop off the hook altogether. Remember, nobody has ever been held accountable in any meaningful way for the murder of Brian Malinowski, Vicky Weaver, or the 25 innocent children burned alive at Waco. But we did get a step closer to some manner of consequence for the people who murdered Brian Malinowski. A federal judge just rejected a motion to dismiss Maria Malinowski's lawsuit, which allows the case to move into discovery. And some very interesting details might come out of discovery. In the end, there could be some small monetary compensation, but nobody will face any professional or personal consequences. If Mrs. Malinowski wins, it will be because the ATF didn't announce themselves adequately or wait long enough. Not because it is reckless and fundamentally evil to break down a man's door trying to provoke a gunfight when a simple phone call or office visit was the appropriate move. And the ATF just declared the Boler Wrap 150 to not be a gun, which is kind of funny because it very clearly meets the definition of what a gun is. They just don't want it to be one. The Boler Wrap 100 used a blank .380 cartridge to propel two barbed projectiles dragging a Kevlar cord to wrap up a bad guy, while the 150 uses these fancy gas generators that are basically miniature airbag inflators to do the same thing. But regardless of what you call them, they expel a projectile using an explosive. You might be wondering why a flare launcher isn't considered a firearm, and that mostly comes down to the fact that a flare launcher is not designed to be used against a person, so it's not a weapon. And even if it were turned to that purpose, it would be pretty terrible at it. So while flare guns do use an explosive to launch a projectile, they are not a weapon and thus don't meet the definition. You may argue that the Boler Wrap is not a weapon because it's less lethal, but batons and OC are weapons. So the way I see it, the ATF just ignored the statute because it would be inconvenient for police departments to handle these devices as firearms. And in case you're wondering, no, the company does not sell their product to laypersons. So what do you think? Should this thing be considered a firearm? Legally speaking, that is. The ATF also just issued a memorandum clarifying that M855 projectiles are not considered armor-piercing in the context of the Gun Control Act. Back in 1986, the media whipped everybody into a frenzy about Teflon-coated cop-killer bullets that never actually existed.
Okay, everybody, listen up. I want you all to have a look at these. Lovely bullets. These are cute. Notice the smooth jacket. Pay particular attention to the tip. Good close look. Observe. Son of a bitch. Armor-piercing bullets? Yeah. Jesus. Cop killers.
So, Congress passed a law amending the 1968 Gun Control Act and banning armor-piercing ammo that could be used in a handgun. Because .556 ammo can be used in handguns such as the Thompson Contender or AR pistols, there was some concern that M855 would be considered AP, but the ATF wrote a rule shortly after Congress passed the law, clarifying that loaded M855 ammunition was not armor-piercing. Mostly because M855 doesn't meet the definition. The statute defines armor-piercing ammo in part as having a projectile core which is constructed entirely from steel. Because M855 has a two-part core, it cannot meet that definition, but the ATF has never been one to let silly things like federal law get in the way of oppressing the masses, so in 2015 they tried to pass a new rule that considered M855 to be AP handgun ammo. That was met with hostility and derision, so they walked it back. Now they're moving the other direction and clarifying the projectiles alone are also not considered armor-piercing even when sold as loose components rather than loaded ammo. As they say, elections have consequences. I have been heavily critical of Trump, and I will continue to criticize him when appropriate, but there is no denying the fact that this current ATF is far less hostile to gun rights than the previous administration. Because apparently, the ATF may have been working with Everytown to coordinate lawsuits against Glock during the Biden administration. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer has sent a letter demanding internal ATF communications as part of an investigation into possible coordination between the Biden White House, ATF, and Everytown. Comer points to several factors. Everytown President John Feinblatt appeared to have detailed knowledge of a private White House meeting with Glock before that information was made public. Multiple former Everytown employees held senior positions in the Biden administration, while a senior ATF official later joined Everytown, and after the committee requested records, both the Biden-era ATF and White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention refused to comply even after Congress issued subpoenas. None of it is a smoking gun, but it is pretty compelling, and honestly, I'd be more surprised to find out those pricks weren't helping Everytown. What do you folks think? Well, friends, rounds complete on 2, but before I get to your moment of completion, I want to let you know I'll be out for the rest of the week with the family, but I'll be back next week with more 2A propaganda. And finally, I'd like to remind you, this program was made possible by contributions from the William H. Crocker Foundation, Senor, Ozark Pilgrim, SquirtedGlizzys, and viewers like you. I love you.